So in this age of medicine, patients get their results immediately, which is good and bad. We oftentimes will get patients that get their prostate MRI results and they don't know how to interpret it. So let's talk about the different classifications with prostate MRI results and what they mean. All right, stay tuned. Hey guys, Dr. Segal here. So the question is, I probably shouldn't have, but I went online and I found the results of my prostate MRI. What do these results mean? So again, patients will get the results quickly. They're not sure how to interpret them. And at the end, I'm going to tell you the thing that I think is most important to remember with prostate MRI results. So stay tuned at the end so I can give you that pearl of wisdom. So there is a system called the prostate imaging radiologic and data system classification that radiologists came up with to be able to interpret prostate MRI results. The system, so we usually just call it PIRAD, so that's why I wrote that here. There's 5 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you see a 1 on your report, in general, what that means is it's highly unlikely that your prostate has prostate cancer in it. 2 is unlikely. 3 is intermediate or indeterminate. Basically, we're not sure. It could or it couldn't. It's got some changes that make it unclear. And we can kind of talk about how we handle that. 4 is likely to be prostate cancer. 5 is highly likely to be prostate cancer. The important thing, though, despite any of these classifications, is that the urologist interprets the prostate MRI relative to your rectal exam, PSA, family history, all of these things, because oftentimes we use these MRIs to determine whether you need a biopsy and sometimes an MRI guided biopsy. And coupling that MRI result with the rectal exam and PSA help us make that decision with you. What are some reasons why we will use a prostate MRI, just in general? One is individuals where we've done a biopsy, we don't find any prostate cancer, and we notice the PSA may be going up, or the PSA was initially high, and we say, you know what, that biopsy, it's a sampling of the prostate. We could have missed some prostate cancer. Let's get what I call a picture of the prostate. Let's get the MRI, which will characterize the whole prostate and tell us whether there was anything suspicious that we might have not picked up on a regular ultrasound-guided prostate needle biopsy. So that's one reason we use it. Sometimes we'll use it in guys with prostate cancer that we're watching, and we can compare one MRI at time point 1 with an MRI a few months later, and we can see whether there's a higher volume of cancer in there. Do the characteristics of that cancer look different on the MRI specimen? Is there any cancer that's kind of going to the edge of the prostate or at the bulge of the prostate? So it's a useful tool in what we call active surveillance or watching prostate cancer, which we're doing more and more of as time goes on. The biggest takeaway that I want you to realize from a prostate MRI, from prostate MRI interpretation is, and prostate MRIs in general. Now we have guys that will say, "Doc, I will never get a prostate biopsy," and for people like that, we'll get an MRI to get a good interpretation or to get a reasonable interpretation for what's going on in their prostate. If they're not going to let me do a biopsy, then an MRI is oftentimes the next best thing. But I want to tell you, and this is the pearl at the end, and the MRI is not a substitute for a biopsy. MRIs are getting better and better, and they're pretty darn good for looking for aggressive prostate cancer. But I have done biopsies on individuals with PIRADS 1 score on the MRI, and I've found cancer. I've done biopsies on score 5s and haven't found cancer. In that regard, it's kind of like the PSA test where it's a guide. So just because your MRI looks good, that's great. I'm happy that your MRI looks good and it says highly unlikely to have prostate cancer. It does not mean that you definitely do not have prostate cancer. That's why we still do biopsies. If this was that good at determining it, we would have stopped doing prostate biopsies. So remember that. It does not substitute for a prostate biopsy, okay? That's the pearl of wisdom I want to give you at the end here. Hopefully that's kind of 101 for prostate MRIs, the classification schemes, how we use them as urologists. I hope that's helpful to you. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. Please subscribe to our channel. Thanks a lot.